Should we pull the TV out?
Sure.
This is already streaming.
Weird light. It's hard to tell.
Hi everyone, welcome to YouTube Live. Thank you for joining me, whether you're here live or you're watching the video afterwards. My name is Dawn Wiggins and I'm your life and relationship strategist. I'm really excited to be talking to you today about beliefs. And I want to be clear that this is not necessarily a conversation about religious or spiritual beliefs. It's about the things that we think and really the thoughts that we rehearse in our mind. So I really am excited to jump into this topic and look forward to any questions or comments that show up in the chat box, as I'd love to answer any of your questions. So when we talk about beliefs, let's first think about where they come from. Our beliefs typically come from early childhood experiences and then ongoing kind of developmental opportunities, learning opportunities, things that we experience in life. And they also come from the beliefs of the people around us that are very, very influential. So our beliefs are probably strongly influenced by loved ones, perhaps teachers or coaches. They could include religious institutions or guidance, and it also could be people that we maybe idolize a little bit, like when we're young, how we all may have a fan crush or a favorite celebrity couple, people in the news media or iconic figures through history. We develop our beliefs from really observing, watching, and seeing others, because we're not born with concrete set of cognitive beliefs. And by cognitive beliefs, I mean thoughts, organized ideas. We develop these as we grow and learn. So we're talking about what you believe today because a lot of times we get caught up in what we call in the therapy industry thinking errors, which means thoughts that are distorted or beliefs that are irrational. And so what I want to do today is to help you understand a little bit how to recognize if you're having a distorted thought or an irrational belief, and to understand a little bit more about where your beliefs come from and if they're affecting you negatively or positively. So I want to point out that when we take a look at the things we believe, let's go to the most basic level. Do we believe that there are good people or bad people, or that what happened to me is good or bad? At that most basic level of black and white thinking, if we are reflecting on the belief that an event or a person is bad, our mood and our thoughts are automatically affected by that belief system. So I'm not asking you to be Pollyanna and to completely throw out the idea that there are painful experiences or people who make negative choices. There certainly are. For me, I've decided to step away as much as I can. I still practice this on a daily basis, from labeling things as good and bad, because I know that when I reflect on something that I perceive as bad that has happened to me or in my life, I automatically feel heavier. I feel maybe sad or a little down, and I have trouble shaking that feeling or sensation. So one thing that I often choose to do when I perceive or am remembering something that I believe is bad, then I reprogram that thought, which is a lot of what I want to teach you to do today. I reprogram the thought by thinking to myself, I bless that person with love, or I bless that situation with love. And I refresh my mind, kind of like refreshing the computer, with a positive, loving thought. And I decide to just release the belief about something bad. So it's not that I suddenly am saying that I like the painful event or person, but I'm choosing to reprogram the thought and refresh my mind with something that's more uplifting, that allows me to not feel angry or resentful or depressed. So notice if you tend to label your beliefs as good or bad, or people as good or bad. So you may take a look at the relationships that you have in your life, your political beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your ideas about people in general. And a lot of times I'll get questions about, what about things that are obviously bad, like genocide or war, murder, or child abuse? I'm not debating that those things are painful and that I would love it if they did not exist. And my goal is to be the change that I want to see in the world. And so I just know that for me to positively affect those painful or negative things, the most powerful tool that I have is changing the way I think. Because if I focus on really painful things and really rehearse how bad they are and believe that they're bad, then I'm only going to be dragged down. So that's my experience, one woman's opinion, but that's how I cope with a lot of those really big questions in life about, um, when painful things happen to good people, or when really dangerous people do dangerous things and hurt others. So I noticed a question in the chat box, and it is, how can I become the change I want to see in the world? I love that question. This topic is very much in line with how you can literally become the change you want to see. And one of the ways that you can do that is by shifting your beliefs to be in line with positivity, with love, with kindness, with integrity. And notice if you judge other people for not doing those things or for acting outside of those behaviors. So anytime we are judging someone else, or we're accusing someone of their belief being wrong or bad, we're doing the opposite of being the change. We're joining them in the negativity fight, or in the conflict, if you will. And so it's not that all conflict is bad, but if it's coming from a place of anger or hatred or resentment, then nobody's learning. Conflict is about a disagreement of ideas. Disagreement of ideas is actually a beautiful thing. So you can be the change you want to see in the world by accepting and celebrating that we all have different beliefs and different opinions. And that's part of what makes this world a beautiful, beautiful place, is that we all get the freedom to choose, and we all get to exercise that choice. And it's really important that we respect other people's right to choose, even when we don't agree, even when we think it's painful. Now, of course, there's rules and laws in this world in a lot of places, and so there might be consequences for a lot of the choices that people make. And that's what, I would ask you to focus on, is you don't need to be responsible for consequencing people for making painful or negative choices. Choose to let go of policing the world or the people that you're in relationship with, and allow the police, or allow the military, or allow natural consequences to take their course of action, and let go of needing to control those kinds of outcomes, and choose to just insert positivity, love, growth, openness, and celebrating diversity. And if we all can focus on doing that even just a little bit more, starting with our thoughts and then translating into our actions, we will be practicing a belief system that is loving, that is positive, that is literally creating change in the world. And sometimes it may feel like that's not enough, but the reality is the more we move in this direction, the more impact we can have, and the more we'll influence people around us to be caring and loving. Just by sharing a smile, a hug, a positive word, an affirmation, a kind deed, it has a domino effect, and people appreciate that. And so the more you can embrace this, the more that you will affect the world and the people around you, and that will end up having an impact. So I see a couple comments in the chat box, and let me just check in. So it's like the book, The Four Agreements, don't judge, don't assume. Absolutely. And so in the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks a lot about belief systems and what we believe. In the early chapters of the book, he calls belief systems dreams that we have. He's really talking about our perception of reality. and he talks about 4 ways to not get caught up in a distorted reality or belief system. And the 4 agreements, I hope I don't forget one right now. The 2 are in the chat box. Not to make assumptions, not to make judgments, to always do your best, and to see, I forgot the 4th one. Oops. And so, yes, this is very much about the 4 agreements, is not judging others, not making assumptions about other people. Assumptions about other people are distorted beliefs in and of themselves. When we assume things about other people or other events, we automatically are putting our frame of reference onto it instead of the other person's frame of reference, and we can't possibly completely understand their experience, their life, or all the details of what happened. So we can know that that's a thinking error or a distorted belief when we're making assumptions. When we're judging others, we're also, again, using our own perception of the world, so it's contributing to a distorted belief or reality. Always do your best is one of the agreements that I love the most, and that's not about being perfect. It's about acceptance, doing my best to love myself, doing my best to accept myself and to accept others, doing my best to take care of myself. It's not about perfection. So there's some great messages in the book, The 4 Agreements, about belief system. Let me check in with the chat box again. I heard Tony Robbins saying life is suffering or living an incredible life. You choose. How do I see this? So I very much agree that we have a choice about how we experience the life that we live. We can choose whether or not to suffer or whether or not to live happily or satisfied. The problem for a lot of folks is they don't necessarily understand how to move out of suffering, and they don't understand how their belief system is contributing to suffering. So Tony Robbins is an amazing person that is really being the change he wants to see in the world. He's very authentic and comes across as just his true self from what I understand about him. And so I admire the things that he says and talks about and how he shares his message. And I believe that he is really working to educate people on how to move out of suffering. And to move out of suffering, it means letting go of some of our thinking errors, like things are good or bad, or that we can control the outcomes of other people's choices, or we can control other people at all. Helping people understand that suffering is when we rehearse the idea of negativity and pain instead of accepting that it is what it is. So I'll tell a hopefully short story about a trip that I took a couple of weeks ago with my family. We had, leading up to the trip, we had some water damage in our home due to our own poor home maintenance. Then we had the Hurricane Matthew approaching, and so it was really kind of crazy. As we were getting out, we got one of the last flights out of town before they shut down the airport because of Matthew. We were on the airplane, and my daughter, she's 2, just as we were landing, she threw up all over myself and her, and we were trapped in the seat, and there was nothing that any of us could do about it, so we just had to patiently wait. And then we got off the plane, and I didn't realize it, but I left my iPad in the seat in front of me. So I went and gave her a bath in the sink in the airport and went on our way. We arrived at our Airbnb, where just days prior our previous host had canceled our reservation, and we just got this one at the last minute. Turns out in all of this that the Airbnb that we ended up with was even more perfect than the first one, and that all the chaos around having to find a new reservation, that it turned out fine. That the pilot of the Delta flight that got handed my iPad said, you know what, I'm going to send it to this woman because I don't want it to get lost in the Delta Shuffle, and he overnighted it to me. He found me somehow online and overnighted it to me. Hurricane Matthew didn't hit our home, and everything just turned out fine. You know, my daughter, she got sick on the airplane, but she didn't even cry, she didn't even freak out. We both stayed calm, and it was okay. So you know, someone could have moved through all those experiences and said, oh my God, this is so effed up. Like, why is all of this happening to me? Why is life so stressful? And I kept telling myself through all of those experiences, Just stay calm and trust the process. Just stay calm and trust the process. And I promise you, I said that so many times to myself, but it was about not allowing myself to get sucked into a negative belief that something bad was happening or that I wasn't okay. And so that's how to not suffer, is to choose to stay in the light instead of the dark. That, and I'm not saying I always do this perfectly. I'm telling you a story of where I happen to do it really well. But it's about really choosing to trust the process and to not go negative. And that's living the life that you can love instead of living in suffering. I hope I answered your question. So there's some more stuff going on in the chat box. Let me check in. So a couple of comments. Are there times when debating about your beliefs is important? I heard a quote, I will respect your opinion as long as your opinion doesn't disrespect my existence. Wow, that is a cool quote. I think debating beliefs is necessary and beautiful. I think that debating beliefs becomes a problem when your motive is to change someone instead of just debating for the benefit of sharing, for the benefit of articulating how you feel about something. When people start debating, and I understand that there is an entire form of debate that is for persuading, when we start to insist on persuading, that's how wars break out. That's how genocide happens. When we start to insist that you must accept my beliefs, that's where it becomes a problem. So even in that quote, and I don't know who said it, and I really hope that they don't feel disrespected by my feedback, but I would suggest respecting anyone's opinion, even if it disrespects existence, because it's their right to choose. So you don't have to agree, you don't have to like it, you don't have to believe it, you don't have to have anything to do with that person, but it's about respecting the right to be and allowing the consequences to take their course on their own instead of having to have a negative action against someone for having an opinion or something that you don't respect or care for. So I like the quote. I like the idea of debating beliefs. I don't like the idea of defending beliefs or persuading to the point where it causes, where you're shaming someone or it's not an open dialogue. I hope I answered your question. Thank you so much for sharing. Someone reminded me the fourth agreement and the four agreements is use impeccable words. Always be impeccable in your word. Yes, that is the fourth agreement. Thank you so much for the reminder. You just talked about having the feeling that what we can do is not enough to really create a change. I know that this is a big for many, feeling what they do doesn't matter in the big picture. Yeah, that's why I touched on it, because I think that there are a lot of us out there that, whether it's just wanting to change ourselves, that can feel overwhelming, or if we're wanting to change a system, it can feel really overwhelming. There's another comment in the chat box about politics in the United States right now, and whether it's here in the United States or anywhere, people can become very polarized these days about beliefs. And Brene Brown talks about this, the need to be right or wrong, to eliminate discourse. She talked about this in her 2010 TED Talk that went viral, that there's no true discourse anymore, that a lot of discussion around politics and religion and things like that are in an effort to make me right and you wrong. And that's really, really important to be aware of. If your belief system, that kind of goes back to the beginning when I was talking about good and bad, if I need to be right and I need to make you wrong, then there's a distorted belief going on there. It is important for there to be a balance of thoughts and ideas, whether it's politically or spiritually or in the world of education or in the world of relationships. It's important that my husband and I both have two different perspectives on maybe what's happening with my daughter. He might have had a completely different experience with her that I didn't know about, and he has information I don't have. If I don't listen or I don't respect that he has a voice and an important thing to say about our daughter, then it's going to create discord, and she won't get the benefit of having two engaged parents. So I would suggest to anyone, if you're debating any topic, or having a discussion about any topic, that you be willing to see that there are limitless, and I literally mean limitless possibilities. I think it's fascinating. I really can't speak to this in other parts of the world, but in the United States, we have kind of fallen into a really, really strong two-party system. And there are so many more choices out there than the two candidates that are currently running for presidential office. And so it's shocking to me that more people aren't saying, well, if we don't like the two choices that are there, why don't we pick a different one? It's wild to me that that's turned into such a black and white discussion, that it's either or, because there are other choices, other really qualified people, and we've fallen into this belief that it's one or the other. And when we start thinking that it's one or the other, that's another thinking error in our belief system. We have started to develop a really narrow mind, and our beliefs are far too limited. And when we function from a limited belief system, we probably are experiencing lack in our lives, meaning the sensation that we don't have enough, like we don't have enough control, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough time. And it's because we literally are functioning from a limited belief that there's only one or two options and that we're trapped. And I want you to know that you are not trapped. You have so many choices and there's so many possibilities, but you have to be willing to move from the suffering of feeling trapped to the belief that there are possibilities. And sometimes that really takes a leap. You know, my husband and I were waiting in line at Disney World this weekend with our daughter, and the ride It's a Small World, and we saw another family get on or off one of the boats, and they had a little girl with them who was severely, severely disabled, and she was laying in a stroller that was clearly specially designed for someone that had her type of disability, and I don't know what it is, but you know, we both just kind of looked at each other, and you could just feel the ache for that family as we were sitting there on the boat with our beautiful, healthy, gorgeous, intelligent, loving daughter. And I just said, really makes you feel grateful, doesn't it? And when you think about life and the hardships that people experience out there, they find a way. They find a way to make life work. They find a way to live and survive and to love, even in the face of hardship. Just like that family that we saw on the ride. They were still at Disney World. They were still taking their daughter, and I'm sure their experience of life has been harder than ours has with our daughter, but they have made it work, and I admire that so much. So I hope that helps convey this idea of limitless possibilities and letting go of suffering and embracing what's possible. Let me just check in with the chat box. Let's see. Yeah, so someone made a comment about the political candidates that are out there. The media tends to promote this idea that we're limited in our options. And so I think that that is an important comment, is that a lot of times our beliefs are affected by the media. So what that means is our beliefs are affected by what we see, what we hear, what we watch, what we choose to put into our minds. So be aware of that. If you are surrounded by any form of media, whether it's social media or news media, whatever it is, it's affecting your beliefs. We have another comment. I think that this has something to do with self-esteem and what you learn from your parents. Yes, my ex-husband believes in right or wrong, when you're losing, not to create a solution that would work for two. Yes, that's wonderful. It is. We are absolutely talking about a shift from what we call black and white thinking, which is one of those thinking errors, to an area that's a little more gray, that believes that there's a win-win or that there's a solution to everything. And that's one of my personal beliefs and brands, is that there is a solution to every problem and that love can heal your pain. And that is absolutely linked to self-esteem, because if I think that I have to be right and you have to be wrong, then I'm probably insecure about myself in some way. I'm probably afraid to let go of a particular belief, and a lot of that has to do with our parents or really key figures in our lives. It's about development of our own true identity and being able to let go of the beliefs that the people around us want us to have. A lot of people in our lives want us to believe what they believe because it shores up their own value system. It makes them feel more resolved and okay about who they are and what they feel. And so that's a thinking error that I need other people to agree with me in order to be okay. Instead of really embracing the idea that I'm okay no matter what anybody else thinks, feels, or believes, and that my beliefs are unique and beautiful, and that I am the gift. And that as long as I'm coming from a place of love, of hope, of consideration, of gratitude, that I'm not going to be hurting anybody with my beliefs, that I'm going to be the change that I want to see in the world. And so with that, that's what I want to leave you with today is, oh, there's one more comment in the chat box. Let me see. Is there a time when a belief, maybe one from our parents, is harmful to us? Absolutely. More times than not. It's not necessarily, this is an important distinction, it's not necessarily our parents' beliefs that were harmful to us. It's the compelling sensation that we have to share their beliefs. And a lot of times parents really drive that idea home that their kids must believe what they believe or else they're not okay. And that's really the problem with parents and kids and beliefs. And even adult children, meaning if you're grown and your parents are still living or even passed on, sometimes it can be really hard to let go of those beliefs because you feel guilty for not believing what your family believed, because they probably gave you the impression that it's necessary to believe what they believe. So it's not so much that their beliefs are bad, even if, there's another comment in the chat box about racism, even if the belief is about racism or some cultural issue or about sex, their beliefs are based on their life experiences. And so we could judge them as bad or wrong, but we're not taking into consideration the sum total of their life experiences. And we're not giving them the benefit of the doubt that there's a reason they hold that belief. It's far more productive for us to take responsibility for our beliefs and to be willing to explore what's possible out there instead of just clinging to the beliefs that were taught to us when we were young. So again, this is about taking personal responsibility and not putting it on our parents that they had a bad or a negative belief. Perhaps it wasn't productive or loving, a belief that they had, but the issue is really, can I let go of theirs and embrace my own beliefs? There's a comment, my parents believe the world is scary, so they wanted to protect us. And that's natural. Parents want to protect their children most of the time, but sometimes the way parents protect their children is actually by hurting, but that's usually not their intention. They raised us to be naive and scared girls, and it took a while to change it and get excited about the world. But I admire that you did choose to embrace the world, and that you did choose to explore other beliefs and other ideas out there. That is so admirable, because there is a tendency to resist change. Our human nature does not like things to be different, especially not very different. We like things to be predictable. We like things to be within our control. And so when we start to explore changing our belief system, it's like unraveling everything that our brain knew to be true. It's like completely deconstructing a house and saying, I'm going to build a new one and I can do this. Even if you've never built a house before, that seems like really challenging. But I promise you that it can be done. And I promise you that if you're willing to take on that challenge, that your life will be so much more rewarding, and you will feel so much more secure in your new house of thoughts, and you will feel so much more sure of yourself, and you will experience love and connection in a different way, and you will really know what your purpose is instead of accepting a purpose or a belief system that's been handed down to you. So thank you so much to everyone who has participated today, and the comments and the questions and the thoughts and the ideas. I hope that I have helped you understand a little bit today why it's important to understand what it is that we believe, how we developed our beliefs, and when it's important to let them go and to develop new ones that are limitless, that'll expose us to all that life has to offer, to embrace love, to embrace compassion, to release judgment, so that we can develop a belief system that allows us to change the world in a positive way. If you want to learn more about how to live this way, I encourage you to hit subscribe and to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. If you'd like to get to know me a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me via my website. You can schedule a free consult or shoot me an email. I am always available to answer questions, and I love it when people join the conversation here on YouTube Live or by leaving a comment. So thank you so much for being a part of this video today. I wish you all love and a blessed day.